Everyone, welcome to Build's Character. I am joined today with the Lauren Urban, our community manager at D&D Beyond, and we are talking about how to hunt monsters. What are some of the best subclasses that are associated with monsters, especially with the time of year that we find ourselves in? It's a fun opportunity to certainly all of the subclasses are going to encounter monsters. The game is Dungeons and Dragons after all. Monsters are probably going to be in play, but there's a few subclasses that are very specifically good at hunting monsters. So we're going to kind of jump into that, right?
I love how last week it was all about what monsters can we chat with and be, and this week it's all what monsters can we kill. So let's pull up some Tarrasque killers and see what we can do to just shoot first and ask questions later. What do you got first?
Well, it's a very obvious one, but we've got the Monster Slayer. This is kind of your Van Helsing Ranger. It's a very fun Ranger subclass. They are kind of the hunters of vampires and dragons and fae and what sorry, I'm stuttering a bit. What different supernatural monsters are out there in the woods in the darkness? The Monster Slayer is very adept at very trained at hunting these things down, and this is pretty evident right from the get-go when you look at the Monster Slayer magic. You're getting protection from evil and good. You're getting Zone of Truth, Magic Circle, Banishment, Hold Monster. Very, very structured for you to be hunting monsters down, and Rangers are already really good at this in the first place. Have you ever played a Monster Slayer before?
I've not this specific subclass. I've played a couple of Rangers, but not this specific one, because I think you really you're going to play this when you are playing a campaign that is 100% let us go, let's do Monster Hunter, the video game. Let us go and hunt down creatures for loot, for profit, for saving towns. Let us destroy the Tarrasque. So, although interestingly enough, you get Zone of Truth, so there's at least the idea that some of these creatures you possibly are going to want to talk to and know that you're getting some straight answers, even though Zone of Truth is kind of limited in that way with who you can do that to. But it's a really interesting moment in amongst a lot of death. It is being able to kill things really efficiently, and then maybe talk to them occasionally. Once or twice.
And I can see you using Zone of Truth very specifically to the thralls of a mind flayer or a vampire, the associates of these monsters that you're trying to hunt. Using Zone of Truth on them can be very effective and very telling too. What they do and do not say can be very fun. So the Monster Slayer has been built from the beginning to be a very rangery ranger in the hunting of monsters aspect. I've never gone to play one myself yet. So the Monster Slayer, very, very adept at figuring out what these monsters are. This is perfect for you if you want to play a character who just has many books, literally is holding the monster manual in their hand, right? This is great for you if you feel like you've just got this compendium of monsters that you are continually writing notes down, kind of like Volo would, right? In that same way. And so you're gathering this information on these creatures. And you obviously probably have a backstory. If you're this obsessed with hunting monsters, you are either doing it for profit, like say being The Witcher, or you're doing it for revenge, or you're just doing it out of the goodness of your heart. Who knows? It could be a lot of reasons. So,
I mean, when the Tarrasque is heading towards the town, someone has to kill it. So, and I just like the variety of options you have. I mean, I keep mentioning the Tarrasque because I think it's fun. That's the quintessential D&D
you
monster.
have high hopes.
No one ever thinks, let me talk to the Tarrasque. Let me, convince it to go somewhere. That thing shows up. How do we kill it? Or get rid of it. So that's just what comes out. But a couple of those other spells I really liked, especially Magic Circle, which is one of those spells that doesn't get used as often as it should because it's a casting time of 1 minute. But what it does is shut down so many issues with specific creatures. If you are going after, as you can see, celestials, elementals, fae, fiends, or undead. So any of the things that your paladin is going to be upset that they can sense, you can just create a circle on the ground and that's it. They cannot pass it. They can't get in, they can't get out. And so it is a really good spell for, especially for this character, because you do have a lot of options. If you do the thing in where you cast it and you're inside being protected from it, you are kind of immune to a lot of the really nasty stuff that these creatures can
Mhm.
do. I've seen it effectively employed against vampires. Curse of Strahd. It's once again, it's a 1 minute casting time, so you have to kind of plan out ahead of time. This has to be more of a trap situation, or just be prepared. But it is super effective against a lot of creatures that would be very deadly, or take over your mind, or be doing all sorts of stuff that can be difficult in combat. So I love that it's got some of that zone of truth and magic circle things that are going to that don't often get used a lot when you're thinking about combating monsters that this character gets. So just being able to play with those is a lot of fun.
And that's something that's so ingrained in us. We've seen it, hundreds of times in movies and books. You draw that circle around yourself, that protection circle, that defends you from this evil creature or this evil horde. And that's almost more terrifying in its own way, depending on how the dungeon master plays it. You just have a horde of vampire spawn that are just like skulking outside the circle, right? Like it can be it can be very interesting in how you want to play this, and it only lasts 1 hour, and like you said, it takes a minute, but a minute might be enough to save you, from
Yeah.
like from a zombie horde, or all kinds of things. It's an opportunity for the DM, if you cast this, to throw more monsters at you than should be, right? Like it gets you out of it gets you out of a situation. So normally you die, and it's kind of a theme with other rangers as well, as like normally you wouldn't be that face to face with maybe such terrible odds, right? You're not going from room to room. Maybe this is coming, you have nowhere to go. Maybe you could save yourself, but you can't save your party. This is how you do it. Like this, I'm going to draw a circle around, and we're just going to hope real hard
And
that
we're going to attack from inside this circle, and we're going to try to slaughter as much as we can before somebody succeeds on a charisma saving throw. And frankly, if you're going after undead, their charisma's pretty low. Their
yeah,
charisma's pretty bad.
this is
So
good. Yeah, very effective.
if you're tactical about this, it's deadly.
Yeah, and I've never gone to actually be part of a fight where I was in Magic Circle, but that's another. You bring up a really good point. This is an opportunity for this. It's kind of like 300, keeping holding the line kind of moment. If you think recently about Game of Thrones, when the undead siege Winterfell, boy, Magic Circle would have helped a lot. They kind
Absolutely.
of did like a massive magic circle made out of fire in some ways, but it does kind of like create those moments that are super fun for players, and it is like a great spell to be using.
I
Banishment,
have had a chance to use that in a combat, and it is super fun.
banishment makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
If it's a monster from another plane, it makes sense that you can get rid of it. If not, gives you a minute to run like hell. You-
Or think, or come up with tactics. Once again, if you're playing a monster slayer, chances are running might not be on the table. Running might not be a thing you even think about.
yeah,
D&D characters in general, it's really hard to get them to run. And then you're a monster hunter, and I've put a monster in front of you.
right. Yeah.
You're fighting it. It's gonna happen.
It's a good opportunity to like just lay down a whole bunch of holy water and stakes sticking out the ground and just kind of hope.
Yep. Just all right. I got a minute to line up my weapons, and here we go. But
All right, here's the
yes.
plan, everybody. Everyone just rush the vampire and push him over onto the stakes.
Just stand all around this circle where we know this creature's coming back. I mean, that's a D&D classic right there.
Oh, that's gotta be nerve-wracking for the monster too. You're just like, okay, okay, okay.
Well, if they're coming back, that means this is your native plane of existence, and they're sent to a harmless demi-plane and incapacitated.
That's
So
right. So they
if
don't have time to mentally think about what's about to happen.
they're
Yeah.
they can kind of think a little bit, but they're
Mm,
incapacitated, so they're just stuck. It's the ones that you get to send back to their own plane that could possibly come back that get to just wander around their plane doing stuff for a while for 59 seconds and
no,
prepping to come back.
it is interesting to use banishment to save someone, maybe even. Like, what if you are in the Shadowfell? You know, can you banish one of your friends to get them back?
What if you're in a bag and you need to get a mimic back to its home? Is that a very specific reference? Maybe yes. I've been in that exact situation
I don't know
of
how you would end up in a bag. I don't know what you're talking about.
yeah, being on another plane of existence with other people and like, well, I can get you back. Because that's the thing about banishment. I don't think it works on yourself. You have to do it on someone else. You can do
Someone
it on
else.
you can do it on another willing creature.
Hmm.
Um, because you immediately lose concentration and things get weird if you try to do it on yourself. But if it's you and me on the wrong plane of existence, I can at least send you back.
Yeah.
And one of us can get out of this situation. Maybe then you can do something from the other side. But yeah, I've
And what a horrible dark moment to be like, you know, you are in Ravenloft or the Shadowfell or some terrible place, and you're being overrun, and you choose to banish your friends, and one person has to stay behind. Like, it's a very classic trope, but
yep.
you know, who would do it? Well, the monster hunter would do it. So it's a nice setup. And then we've got some really great abilities here. And right off the bat, third level, you know, within 60 feet, you can look at a creature and immediately know its damage immunities, its resistances, its vulnerabilities. If the creature is hidden but with divination magic, you sense that there is no damage immunities or resistances or vulnerabilities. So even then, you know something's up. The fact that you can do this as many times as your wisdom modifier allows, this is really crucial. Like, and this is great if you really know the monster manual, right? Or Volo's like the back of your hand. And this is a good excuse for you to know these things in reality. Like, we went up against flail snails. I didn't know how tough flail. I had a vague memory of how tough flail snails are. They are a nightmare. And this once we encountered it in our own game, you and I had never wanted to be a monster slayer more than in my entire life to figure out how not to die.
Meanwhile, I'd thrown them at my own players in my own game several times, and I've used them a lot. And so I was super excited, and then have to pretend I knew nothing about them.
I know.
Because I was not a monster slayer. So in this case, if I'd been one, I could have drawn on that knowledge. Yeah, you're right. This is the perfect kind of character, whether it's specifically the monster slayer ranger or some of the others we're going to talk about, and where do you have a player who is they've absorbed the monster manual, and you know, maybe this is the reward for not metagaming, so being really good in some of the other games that you've played, where like i
Yeah.
want to I want to lean into the fact that you know all of this stuff. I want you to feel empowered to be the person who knows everything about these creatures, because that's a ton of fun when you can reward a player for being knowledgeable about the game in a way that is totally acceptable in game.
Yeah.
Is that feels good as both a player and a character, and this is the way to do it. If you've just absorbed everything, all the stat blocks, maybe you've been a DM for a very long time, and so now you're going to play, and it's like, well, how do I lean into this without worrying about it being overpowered or being, you know, metagaming for the character? Well, this is how, right here.
Yeah, it's a very, I love knowledgeable characters, and I find myself increasingly, and we were just talking about this, I'm kind of like leaning away from spell casting, and more just like knowledge-based characters are so exciting. And again, like you said, if that's that part of the player's personality, part of the character, it makes a lot of sense. And this backs it up. And this makes you kind of invaluable to the party as well, because you might know that one thing, you know, you see that dragon high above and you notice it's missing a scale, you know, that kind of thing. You know the lore of vampires, and you know that a stake will go through its heart. You know, all
If
of
I
us
was
know that, but
but in the game,
but in the game, you might not. You know,
Yeah.
it might. You know, you may never have heard that myth in
Or it
particular.
might be different in this, this homebrew world that you're playing on, or in this version of,
Uh,
whatever world that your DM is playing on. So it's always good to
well,
be ready for that moment and where things are different than what you think. But yeah, this is the perfect way to lean into that. So and what I like about this also is you either pairing up with somebody who is a harvester
mm,
or working with your DM and letting your DM lean into harvesting for spell components, for alchemical components, for armor bits, for crafting, for
mm,
all of that
mm.
kind of fun stuff. Because I think anyone who's going to really lean into hunting down these creatures, you're going to start to think about what can I get, and not just dragon scales, just anything that comes along, can I harvest this thing for its toxins so that I can make an antitoxin? Can I,
Absolutely.
whatever it is, can I carve out that flail snail to get that shell that did all that fun stuff?
Absolutely, and I strongly considered this because at the time my wife was playing an artificer alchemist, and we like to grab all the bits off monsters because we think it's funny, and it's a running gag now in our show, Silver and Steel, and this was kind of like probably the most complementary to that kind of play style. You know, like an alchemist who wants all this gross stuff. Well, this is the ranger who like harvests it. You
Yep.
know, who figures it out. That might actually know you can make something out of this, and then you go over to your artificer and the artificer turns into something, and it's like a good back and forth um, setup for role playing. And at third level you get another ability. You get two, which is fantastic. Well, you get three really because of the spell casting, but Slayer's Prey. At third level, you can focus your ire on one foe, increasing the harm you inflict on it. As a bonus action, you can designate one creature you see within 60 feet of you. The first time each turn that you hit this target with a weapon attack, you do an extra 1d6. This is really great. This is you're honed in, you're focused. It's happening every turn. It's a good ability, and it just shows that you are the hunter. Certainly there's other spells like Hunter's Mark that are effective as well. But this whole subclass has all of this like supernatural defense. This is great because if you are like going up against vampires or mind flayers, you need a little bit of extra saving throw help. Right? Maybe you're used to having your mind controlled by vampires, right? Maybe you were once a thrall of mind flayers or vampires. And so you really need this. If you're the person who's going after monsters, it's not enough to know how they're weak. You need to also know how dangerous they are. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
you gotta be the tougher person. You've got to be that Van Helsing who's like, I've seen a lot of stuff. I've seen a lot of people succumb to enchantment magic and all this other stuff. And I've seen friends get grappled by krakens, right? Like you maybe you know how to wiggle. Yeah,
I've just had
mentally
to
and
do this a
physically, you know
lot.
how to wiggle a little bit. So
Exactly. Or even if you don't necessarily have the skills yourself, you've studied these creatures that you can be prepared. So you know in advance, I'm gonna have to be ready to duck, dodge, and weave. I'm gonna have to be ready to steal my mind. I'm gonna have to be ready for all of this. And this just gives you that mechanical benefit, which I think for anyone who's playing a character that's going to be that knowledgeable about these creatures, it makes sense.
yeah,
And 1d6 is really good,
yeah,
but it's not so overpowered that you're like, "Well, nothing can touch me." Especially for the stats that are not your strong stats.
yeah.
This is a good way of showing that, yeah, I'm way more resilient against these creatures than normal, but I can still get taken over. I can still get grappled. I can still, there's still that element of it could happen.
Yeah, yeah. I think one d six is really and it shows kind of that unpredictability of it, right? Instead of a flat bonus.
Yep.
It's exactly what you want for this particular character. And again, this is like the most knowledge based ranger in my opinion. Like this is a ranger who studies, who maybe has their head in the book, which I wouldn't think of it for most rangers.
See, now I think this is the ranger who you're right that they study, but this is the school of hard knocks study because everything is
Yeah,
so wisdom based. So
yeah.
this isn't necessarily that they're studying it in books. They're out there, maybe they were apprenticed to a monster hunter. Maybe they just had to learn the hard way. Maybe, this is the level 1 monster hunter, and this is how you show their progression as they go out with a
Mm,
group that are off hunting these creatures. I think that's the wisdom side of things, but I do also like the idea of them, the tableau of them back at home with like a suite of books, all the encyclopedias, all of Volo's guides, and they're all annotated with all of the stuff that's wrong.
yeah.
Because this would be the character that's like, "Volo, really? No, that's not. Why
Well,
didn't they mention this?"
well, actually,
This would be the well actually character.
and these aren't intended to be deep dives into each of these subclasses. Later on at 11th level, you get the magic user's nemesis. This allows you to foil a teleport. This is really handy against wizards and spellcasters. But if a vampire is trying to misty, turn to mist and run away, or someone's trying to misty step, this allows you to shut that down. This means it's just you and that monster together. I think this would pair really well with the Sentinel feat as well.
Mm.
Getting that reaction to attack somebody and lock them down to 0. But this on top of it, no one's getting away from you, because that's the biggest thing that you see all these vampire movies. Dracula gets away, and Strahd certainly has died many times, or supposedly. And then you get Slayer's counter, which is great. Like if something it allows you to counteract a monster who attacks you, and you're allowed to make a weapon attack against them. If you're, I believe you're forced to do a saving throw of any kind. So you're now even adept at, like, even if they're messing with you, it's a detriment, right? In kind of that hellish rebuke kind of way. You've got an advantage on making saving throws, but if it forces you to do one, you're going to take that moment to stab it, which is great. And it's
Yep.
kind of like that final. It's kind of like that final, like, you something grabs you and lifts you up in the air, and you just happen to have a dagger and you just stab them one last time. Maybe it's kind of got that flavor. Like that might be the saving strike that keeps you alive.
Yeah, both of these are, they feel very much to me that moment in where you've got the monster on the rocks, they're gonna try to flee,
Yeah.
and you lock that down before they can flee. So
Yeah, or they've got you on the rocks.
yeah, maybe
and
it's a bit of both.
you need to go after them. So let's move to one that you've played quite a bit, and that is the
Yeah.
Rogue Inquisitive. So let me move down. This is the Mastermind.
Oh, you want to go up? Yeah, Rogue
There we
Inquisitive.
go.
So I played a campaign level 1 to 20, and I was a Rogue Inquisitive. And the fun thing about the Inquisitive is, even though a lot of the flavor of this subclass, when you read it, it can read a little bit like it's for a urban campaign. It's you're trying to suss out true intent. You're trying to find people. If it seems like the kind of thing that would be good for an investigator in a city, and it totally is. But the other thing that the Inquisitive is good at is just being really good at killing stuff, because rogues are deadly. And the main thing the Inquisitive lets you do, that kind of its core power mechanic, is letting you get sneak attack without some of the other things that you need with some of the other subclasses. So one of the very first things that the Inquisitive does is it pumps up your perception and your insight, and it makes you incredibly good at reading intent, at seeing creatures. You can use a bonus action to spot perception checks to try to find hidden creatures. You can, and it basically gives you, I've just forgot the name of the unreliable talent, or it gives
Mm,
you reliable talent on your insight checks, like right away. Like
yeah,
immediately, you can't do less than an 8 on your insight checks, which is really important because you get this insightful fighting feature, which is, as a bonus action, you make an insight check, and it's contested by a target's charisma deception check. And if you do better than they do, you get your sneak attack damage against them. even if you don't have advantage, even if there isn't another creature next to it, you just get your sneak attack. And it's flavored as I've just read enough of your body language and I know enough about this creature that I'm looking at that I can almost predict its movements. And so I no longer need advantage or an ally. I now am my own ally because I've studied you enough in that moment. And then everything else about this subclass just compounds on you can't hide from me and you can't lie to me and you can't evade me because I can see you and I know where you are at all times and I'll be able to hit you before you even know where you're going.
You know,
And
like where like the monster slayer is like that kind of ranger who has life experience. This is someone who's just intuitive on a hyper level. They know
yep.
when you're lying. They know how to hit you. They know when something's around them. They can investigate as a bonus action. Like they can't turn their minds off, and that makes them a perfect monster hunter. And then we've got some more abilities.
Yeah, and one more thing about insightful fighting: there's no limit on the number of times you can use it.
Yeah,
you can only have it on one creature at a time, but you basically turn into single target domino. So I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna get you, and because it's a bonus action, you still get your attack, and you still get your movement, you still get everything else. It's really good. Level 9 is once again you're given a way to make those checks happen even more powerfully. So if you don't move more than half your speed on a turn, you have advantage on perception and investigation checks. And so if you're in combat and you're, say, an Aarakocra who's flying around, you still have 25 feet of movement, and now you have advantage on finding creatures and looking for creatures. Unerring eyes, same kind of thing. You can feel the presence of creatures that are uniquely made to deceive you. Illusions, shapeshifters, and you just kind of know that they're there. You just sense that they're around, and you can't be, as long as you are near enough to them, you just know they're there once you set this off. And then Eye for Weakness is basically the capstone of, hey, we're just going to give you more sneak attack damage. When I got to
sneeze at.
yeah, I mean, there was a point in where the number of d6s I was rolling was ridiculous. And so the rogue that I took with this also took the observant feat. And so by about level 15, she had a passive perception of 32.
Oh my god.
Yes, she got the joke became that she could hear the DM describe the room because we would walk in and the DM would describe what was around, and then Rock knows, because once you've got this amazing perception, you just see everything. And so it became kind of a fun role-playing thing. And there's still moments in where you have to roll. It doesn't shut down a DM completely. But you just become impossible to hide from. And depending on the type of creatures you're going after, the ranger we were looking at before is probably more deadly for specific creatures, but overall, this is a rogue that is just going to find you and kill you and doesn't need any help to do it, really.
Yeah,
because my ranger, she used a short bow, so she also attacked from range, because once you do this, you don't have to be in melee. You don't have to have all sorts of stuff. You're just, I see you and I have incited you and I know where you're going to be, and now I'm just going to be all the way back here shooting you, getting massive amounts of sneak attack. So it is ridiculous fun. Is super ridiculous fun. I highly recommend, if you go Mastermind, absolutely take the observant feat. Be that person who gets a 30 on
the
stuff.
Inquisitive. Yeah.
Or the Inquisitive. Sorry, yeah. It's amazing. It is so much fun.
In 13th level, this is like knowing the fact that, like, and what I like about this is an automatic with Unerring Eye. You have to be a little suspicious that something is going on as a character, as you playing this character. And that is so helpful in a setting like Ravenloft or anything else. You're like, I think something's not right. And then you just automatically get to know that this illusion is fake.
Yep.
That person is a werewolf, or like a shape changer or a doppelganger. whatever is happening there, pretending to be something else, whether it's an oblex, all these different kind of creatures that can exist. The fact that you get to know and you can tell your party, and then how do you tell your party? Well, if you're in a tavern and this thing in front of you is not who they say they are, I mean, you need to like, this guy's no good. We got to do something about this.
Oh, and that becomes the irony of you're sitting in the tavern and you are the creature that looks around and can read everybody around you incredibly well. Well, does anybody in your party have the same kind of insight and can read you, so that when you're putting your head and going like, oh, we need to leave and talk, or oh, check this person out,
No, really. Like, you might want like a high deception check with this character as well. As you try to hide the fact that you know everything that's going on. Right.
This becomes the thing where you've set up a whole bunch of keywords ahead of time. Like, if I say kumquat, then let's go leave. We need to leave. We need to leave now. And you get to do it a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, which probably at 13th level is probably pretty high. And it's like the paladin divine sense. It can be that thing that you're just like, I'm a little suspicious. Let's just do it. Tell me. Just tell me if there are anybody that I need to be worried about. Are there any invisible things? Is there any illusions? Let's go. Yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with Sherlock Holmes type characters, but again, like this is a great monster hunter. Like if you need someone who hunts monsters, this is another great example of that kind of character.
The other thing I would highly recommend with this character is play dump stat your charisma, because there's nothing more fun than being the person who can read everybody in the room but can't lie.
Yeah. Or they're so, and you see this in the Sherlock Holmes British series, BBC series, of just not being aware, like, and certainly I feel like I've been a victim of this as well. I get so focused on the details, I'm not really reading a room right. And you see these characters in film all the time. They know everything that's going on, but they don't necessarily know how to interpret it. So playing a character with a low charisma who doesn't really know how to scare someone, doesn't really know how to be persuasive, but they know everything that you're thinking, is very fun and compartmentalized.
Yeah. Or they know what you're thinking and they don't have the emotional fortitude to understand when they shouldn't just blurt out the thing that you're not saying. That moment, that was my character was that way. She never lied because she could read everybody else so well that she just thought everybody could do the same thing. So it's like, why bother lying? I would know, and if I know, you're gonna know. But she also had no idea the appropriate time to keep secrets. So if she sussed something out by somebody, she would just blurt it out, which was always interesting.
I could see a very fun combination with this being with a bard college of eloquence, someone who can talk to any monster, who has like very high persuasion and deception, and then you've got this character.
Yep.
There's the wrong thing all the time.
There was a point where we got Rary's telepathic bond, and the wizard was just casting it all the time because it was like, we need a place in where this character can just blurt out all of the stuff, and we can still be sneaky.
Absolutely. What should we move on? Let's do something a little unexpected. It's not entirely unexpected, but let's talk about the Battlemaster. Battlemaster is probably one of the single-handedly most adaptable fighters that you're going to find in terms of subclasses. You've got all of these maneuvers, which really allow you to mix and match your fighter, which you already get to do because you get so many potential, so many chances to increase your abilities and to take feats already as a fighter, far more than any other class. On top of this, you get all these maneuvers that are very situational, but can kind of sculpt how you see your character. So you got disarming strike. You've got distracting strike. You have all these ways to set up everyone else in your party for success, right? Like there are ways that you can scare maybe a monster or an enemy, right? Or you can create a distracting strike, and that's going to give someone else in your party advantage on their next attack roll. You can do things like Commander Strike, where you can forego one of your attacks as the Battlemaster and let someone use their reaction. So,
yeah. And if that person who uses their reaction happens to be a rogue who can get sneak attack on, because it's not their turn anymore, and so now you can get sneak attack a second time before it's your turn. Oh, it's a gorgeous moment.
It's some nasty stuff. And my wife and I, well, mainly I am very obsessed with characters that work very well together, and we're going to talk a little bit about that later. This synergizes with another rogue class almost beat for beat. So yeah, Commander Strike is fantastic for thieves. If you have a thief in the party and you're a battle master and you're not taking Commander Strike, you don't like, you just hate damage. That's all I have to say to you. 2 sneak attacks per turn is amazing.
But that's, that you as a battle master also can put out a ton of damage. So,
yeah.
You can certainly pick some of these specifically to be, all right, I'm going to be the tank who's going to open this creature up to other people in my party. Or you can take some of these maneuvers that just help you wail on things and make you impossible to hit, or make you impossible to nail down so you can continue to wail on things. So it really just depends on what flavor your hunter wants to be.
And now we're kind of getting a picture of a monster hunting party that is not very magic focused. Because if you've got the ranger who is the monster slayer, and they sense that one of certain weaknesses, you can use one of these maneuvers to help exploit those weaknesses, right? In fact, we'll get into this more, but there are rogues that can know very specific stats as well about people you're fighting, and that might inform, oh, so this person I'm fighting has a low wisdom score. Well, I'll use menacing attack, and that will increase the chance of me frightening it, right? Basically, what the Battlemaster is anything you could think of that you would do with a sword or in combat in a very combat focused film. You can do it here. You can help block damage from somebody else. You can maneuver someone into a different position. You can do all of that stuff. You can parry, you can lunge, you can push someone. It's all in here. And that's why it's really very adaptable to killing monsters. If you're a monster hunting party, it's very advantageous.
Yeah, and not just to killing monsters, but killing monsters in a way that you find particularly fun or is going to work well with your party. So there's a lot of differences there. You can have 2 battle master fighters who are completely different versions of fighters just because of what maneuvers they've decided to take.
Yeah, because again, if you did this Commander Strike, you're giving your rogue an extra 1d8 to its sneak attack damage as well. And like you said, you guys all you all come together, you decide what kind of party you're going to be, what subclasses you're playing, and as the Battlemaster, you can now look at your abilities and tailor make them for that party. It's very few subclasses give you this kind of specificity for the rest of your party and your friends, and that's why the Battlemaster is really exciting.
Without being a spellcaster, anyway. Without being
yes, without being a spellcaster.
And specifically a spellcaster that is looking at your buff spells, your support spells, being a caster who is there to support and do that kind of thing. This is a lot of the time when you're playing a martial class, that's not what you're thinking about unless you're being a tank. Usually it's, I have to be a wall in order to help my friends, or I have to be the thing that kills something fast enough to help my friends. And this is a way to be a support tank, but still you can do a lot of damage.
Yeah, you still have action surge, you still have multiple attacks once you hit 5th level. The other thing is I love characters that switch damage on you. Like, you think you're going to hurt this character, no you don't, or I somehow make you hurt a different creature or character. This is the kind of stuff I live for. I played Artificer Armor that has some abilities like that, and I adore it. I actually like tanking quite a bit, but boy, you do get tired of getting hit eventually. a little bit.
Or you gotta get into that mindset where every time I'm taking a hit, all right, well, this is what I wanted. This is the fun thing. All right, bring it on. You kind of have to be a little bit okay with just
getting the crap kicked out of you. And there's something comical about being a tank ultimately. Like, yeah, you could be playing it like you're this big buff super dude, but like when I was playing a tank for a brief period of time with you, I just always found myself in something's mouth and just,
that happened
just
quite
flailing
often.
around.
Yeah, but it worked. I mean,
Yeah.
you were effective even if it was not in the way that you were intending. So it still worked.
And
And
and that humor that you get. Like your armor's all beat up, you're all sore, and everyone's like, good game, everybody." You're just like limping off the field.
and once again, the rest of your party, like, you know, they're going to be grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because if you're playing the long distance rogue, if you're playing the ranger, if you're playing, you know, the fighter is going to be one of those classes that is going to be able to tend to take the damage because of their HP and tend to have slightly better AC. And then if you've got a couple of other classes with you who are doing massive damage, thank your tank.
Yeah. And this is again, and this is a very, very good tank if you look at the specifics. Now this is where things get really interesting, and I'm very tempted to play this, play these two different types of characters with my wife, and this is like core to it. Know your enemy. At 7th level, you can spend 1 minute observing and interacting with another creature outside of combat. You can learn the following information about its capabilities. The DM tells you if the creature is your equal, your superior, or your inferior in regard to the following characteristics of your choice. Is it stronger? Is it more dexterous? Does it have a better constitution or not, or lower? Armor class, current hit points, levels, fighter class levels, if any. This helps a lot. Again, if you got a spellcaster in your party and you know this information, this is very informative. It's informative to you as well. Like if you know this thing has lower strength, you've sized it up, use some of your maneuvers to grapple it, right?
And this encourages you to play tactically. This encourages you to not kick down the door and just rush at things. This encourages, if you've got a rogue in your party who wants to go scouting, this is another reason to hang back and just observe from a distance. Oh, I just need a minute to like watch this thing. This is another reason to let your ranger cast magic circle for the minute that it takes, because you're prepping the field.
Wow, yeah.
And you're preparing so that because half of monster slaying is not being surprised, it's surprising the creature, right? And so this is right here, needing to spend the minute to get this vital information so that you can make some really tactical decisions. Right there in your subclass, you are encouraged to play smart. And I love that for what is often a martial class that can be considered a dumb brute. Now I'm just gonna rush in and kick down the door. Right here is, nah, I'm gonna take the minute. We're gonna prep the battlefield. We're gonna come up with a trap, and I'm gonna learn some really interesting information. We're gonna hang back. I love that it does take the minute. I think the flavor on that is awesome.
I think that's brilliant. Yeah, you're totally right. With a monster slayer being able to cast magic circle, and then you're giving this battle master time to size up their enemy is brilliant, especially if you're in a tough spot, like you're surrounded by monsters and you have, this is just, I mean, it lasts an hour, so you can just be looking at each monster like, okay, here's kind of the lay of the land, everybody. Like this is, and you know, the ranger's doing the same thing. It's looking around, it's like, it's weak here in terms of resistances, it's got this ability, and you are also filling in the gaps of what you're fighting, with a little bit of specifics. Not, you don't get the exact score, but you have now this very intelligent tactical party, and I love that. Like these are the vampire hunters, right?
Yeah.
You know, and at 10th level, your superiority die increases in level. This means you're doing more damage. You're more effective with all these battle maneuvers. At 15th level, you get when you roll initiative, you have none of these dice left to use. You get one back anyways. That's great. You're just never running out. At 10th level, your dice does turn to a full D12, which is great. So it just kind of builds off that, and it's a lot of maneuvers. This is a thinking person's fighter for sure.
A thinking person's and a team player. Even if you are taking the maneuvers that are going to let you be the slayer, let you be the damage dealer, you're still in a position in where you're going to be assisting your party, just from what you need to do and how you need to do it and what they're going to be able to do because of your
Yeah.
maneuvers.
It really is that ball special, like Wolverine being thrown by Colossus kind of mentality, Iron Man shooting out a ray out of his chest, hitting Captain America's shield, striking all these other monsters. It's all of that you want to see in combat, that makes combat fun to watch in films. This allows you to do so much of that and to be that character that gives back to the party. And I don't think there's anything more rewarding that to me personally. Giving someone an opportunity. Like, I think it's number one, if I'm a rogue and I'm being given the chance to have another sneak attack, I'm so happy. And if I'm giving you that chance, I am so happy too.
Yeah.
We shared sneak attack.
Exactly.
Like we've done it together.
Before we leave fighter,
yes.
would you scroll up a little bit to the Arcane Archer?
Oh no. Okay.
So this often overlooked subclass is one that I recently got a chance to play in a game of, it was a 5th edition version of, we were all playing Marvel superheroes, and I was playing Hawkeye.
Of course.
Of course, because I am a fan of any superhero that does not have any powers except for they just worked really hard and they can be snarky. So, we came up with a couple different builds. I was playing a pretty high level, obviously, because it's Hawkeye. But I kind of fell in love with the Arcane Archer in general and some of the stuff in specific that you can do. And I will jokingly mention the Tarask again. If you are going to fight a Tarask, you just want a bunch of Arcane Archers with longbows. It's fun. But a lot of the stuff that you can do is really pinpoint specific for slaying creatures, and because you get these magic arrows, it gives you a lot of ability to do things that you wouldn't necessarily do when you're thinking about an archer build unless you get some magic items. So it gives you the built-in ability to attack, and it's not really cast spells, but get magic arrows and do things that can be deadly from super long range. The thing that I love the most is the curving shot, which is the 7th level. I don't want to go into everything, but specifically that became my favorite thing, especially as Hawkeye, who is supposed to not miss. Well, guess what? It's me rolling and I roll like crap. So every once in a while, even I miss. And the best thing about this feature, the curving shot, if you miss, you can just redirect the attack to somebody else that you can see. So you didn't actually miss. You're just hitting something else. So it's got a little bit more flavor in it because of some of the archery stuff that you have in. I love that. I loved pairing this up with sharpshooter and
yes. Yeah.
And then you give me a longbow and I am 600 feet away and I am doing a lot of damage from very far away with magic arrows. And if I miss, I'm hitting someone else. So it was super fun, especially for small groups. So single targets, yes, or small groups of targets, in where I'm just pinging from that distance. I'm being that sniper and overseeing the battlefield to be able to watch out for a second wave that's coming in, to be able to watch out for stuff that's happening off in the distance. It's a lot of fun. And because a lot of the stuff you get as a fighter comes back on a short rest, you can refresh a lot of this stuff. It can feel a little limiting because you only get a couple of the arcane shots, but they come back on a short rest. So you do a fight, you and the monk sit somewhere for a second and heavy breathe, and then you're back in the fight and you've got your arcane shots again.
There's a lot of ways to supplement it too. Like you said, if you're deciding to take that -5, right, with the feet, and you're going to get that +10, you're killing it. Like, you're already a great archer and you're making these tactical decisions again. And you can also take a feat that allows you to get battle maneuvers as well. So you can be a you super focus on trick shots. When you're looking at disarming strikes and stuff like that, you can start, if you layer that feat, which allows you to choose a few battle maneuvers from the battle master, and you put it onto the arcane archer, you really are that trick shot master. Like you are up to some sneaky stuff.
And then you do a little multi-class into that rogue that lets you insightful fighting from a while away, and then you are your own sneak attack with magic arrows that if you miss, you just attack someone else and it's fine. So yeah, I know the arcane archer gets a lot of eye rolling sometimes when people are talking about the battle master, or talking about the fighter, but I had a lot of fun with it, and I highly recommend looking into it for if that's the kind of flavor that you're looking for in your monster hunter, or in just an archer in general.
Yeah. I was obsessed with Arcane Archer, and also the Blade Singer, coming from the the Guide to Elves in second edition. Is this brown book, and obsessed with all the weird ideas for silly things that you could do with arrows. But yeah, there's just something about magical arrow guy that is so appealing. I'm obsessed. I grew up shooting arrows, so this is always appealing to me. I always kind of perk up when I see someone using a longbow. At all times, it's the first thing I do at Ren Fair. So magic bows are great. Curving shot is hilarious. Ever ready shot is nice.
Yeah. And I'm also a fan just of any subclass or monks who just give you the thing to be able to bypass stuff that has resistance to non-magical damage, because that eventually happens. You reach a high enough level, and if you don't have a magic weapon, you're a martial character, you can find yourself in a really uncomfortable position for a while until you're basically waiting for that magic item to drop. But if you're an arcane archer, or if you're a monk, and it just, your subclass just says, here you go.
Yeah, you get super powerful, and this is very utilitarian when you're a monster hunter. You're like, we've got banishing arrows, so you're basically, you're doing some damage, and you're also getting rid of it for a turn, or you're getting rid of it entirely. Beguiling arrow. You can effectively charm something temporarily and do some psychic damage to it. If you just kind of like knock a monster out of it for a few seconds, can be very advantageous. Bursting arrow is like a little tiny fireball arrow. You got enfeebling arrow, weakening, doing damage, but also weakening it in general. And what's great about all of these is if you have the information or the gist of, again, what are these monsters' strengths, what are their weaknesses, you're getting this from the ranger, you're getting this from the battle master, you're getting this from the inquisitive. Each of these arrows can be perfect for taking down this creature. You're going to know which of these arrows is going to be most effective, especially these more specialized one like grasping arrow and enfeebling arrow and bursting arrow. Seeking arrow is fantastic if you just want that shot. Like, I'm gonna hit you, I don't care.
You didn't get away from me, you didn't get around a corner, I can still hit you.
Yeah, it's great. I do like the arcane archer quite a bit, and I feel like if you do feel there are shortcomings, you've got so many feats that are going to supplement this. There are a lot of ways to be very, very deadly with arcane archer, and it's just fun. So,
absolutely.
Well, we got a little bit of time left. I'm not entirely sure how much time. I'm really gonna quickly let's talk about the rogue mastermind real quick, which is an unusual choice, I will admit. So I'm going to go, and obviously there are some other obvious choices. Gloomstalker Ranger is very powerful. It does massive burst damage. It's good at ambushing creatures. I'm not going to, we've already had like a separate video about the Gloomstalker, but the fact that you are invisible to creatures that depend on dark vision is super monster huntery stuff. You could be right in front of that monster and be invisible to it. So extremely powerful. We're aware of it. But Mastermind, this is the opposite end of the Inquisitive in many ways. You're kind of a master of tactics. You're really seeing the battlefield. You're good at misdirection. You are the Moriarty of your party in some ways. And though this subclass is largely based off intrigue, you get to do some interesting things like mimic other people's speech. Right. This can be useful if you're trying to blend in, if you've disguised yourself. But Master of Tactics, this is where the fun begins. So for me, I think it'd be great. If you have a Battle Master fighter and you've got a Mastermind Rogue, and the Battle Master is using Commander Strike to give you a second sneak attack, and you're using your sneak attack all the time, you're doing a ton of damage. But then once you're using Master of Tactics, this allows you to use the help action to give somebody else, could be the Arcane Archer, but I think you should give it to the Battle Master to give them the help action for them in combat so that they have advantage on their next attack. What if this Battle Master is an elf and has elven accuracy? So now it has triple advantage. So it's definitely
I don't think that's how that works. No,
it's kind of if you have advantage and you roll 2 dice, you get to roll a third one as well. So it's not triple advantage, but it might as well be. Now,
but anyway,
that's how it works, right? Elven accuracy. I'm 100% sure.
I don't think you add a third dice. I think it's if you either have advantage or you have disadvantage. I don't think you can get.
You can roll one more is the thing. Like you do get to roll one more. The percentage chance of you getting a critical hit, however, is like significantly lower as you go down there.
That's true, yeah.
But elven accuracy is extremely deadly in that term. Like if you really want to make that hit, you're giving the Battle Master that chance. If the Battle Master knows it's probably going to be getting advantage every time it attacks, well, why not have like why not be a crossbow expert and also have the sharpshooter feat? So you know you've got a -5 to attack this character. You know, the Mastermind Rogue is there within via you. You're there with this kind of John Wick hand crossbow, and you're deciding to take a -5, and then you get this 10 extra damage to your attack. Well, Master at 6th level, you know, the Battle Master is doing like 18 points of damage. You know, the Rogue Mastermind is doing like 44 points of damage on average in terms of sneak attack. You both together are just killing it. And that kind of feels like these two subclasses were meant for each other, because this insightful manipulator is very interesting. If you get a minute to observe another creature outside of combat, you learn certain information about them. Imagine everyone's in the circle. The DM tells you if the creature is your equal, again, just like the Battle Master, but for different stats, or inferior to your intelligence, your wisdom, your charisma, your class levels. This is exactly what the Battle Master can do, but for different abilities. And they sync up perfectly. You now have a party between the Inquisitive, the Mastermind, the Battle Master, the Monster Slayer. You can size up anything, any monster, any creature, any villain, and have a pretty good idea how to take them down.
Yeah, especially within that minute, because you get two of you get to choose 2 things. And so, all right, I'm going to choose these 2, and the Battle Master's going to choose these 2, and you're going to choose these 2, and we're just going to find out what all the stats are before we even have to attack.
Wait, hold up. I'm going to cast Magic Circle. Give us a minute.
Yep.
just
what are you all doing?
Somebody from the crowd.
Battle?
Yeah. And then we've got misdirection, which is great. You know, when you are targeted by an attack, you know, while a creature is within 5 feet of you, you can actually use your reaction to cause that attack to hit them instead. That's pretty great if you're up against a horde. And then you get Soul of Deceit later. So these monsters, these creatures, these mind flayers, whatever this entity is, can't even read your mind. You have like a strong ability to use your charisma and deception to block out their abilities, to reach into your brain, to know what you're up to. You're the hardest member of the party to interrogate, and that makes them pretty powerful. So
absolutely,
that's what I got for Mastermind.
And it's another example of a class that, while it's flavored for an urban environment, and it might be, and a lot of these are useful in either role-playing settings or in a combat that is not necessarily I'm going after a creature and trying to hunt something. It perfectly lines up with the idea of we're working as a team to use these abilities to take down a monster. And I like this as well, because now you can use some of these subclasses and have a campaign that includes more than just let's slay the monster. If you've got people, most people kind of like a little bit of both in their D&D. They want a little bit of combat and they want a little bit of role playing. And, depending on what people want, yeah, it could be fun to just be we're the crew that goes out and is the people slaying stuff and bringing back the goods. But it's also good to know that you've crafted a character that is still very useful in role playing situations in the city. When you're coming back with your stuff, you're not left, unable to interact with merchants and negotiate with people and find more jobs to go out on, because these are characters that are still very effective negotiators. These are still these are the characters that, like, they're going to take those skills hunting down the white dragon, and all of a sudden they get pulled into a bit of intrigue back at the castle. And you still have a lot of the same abilities, just in a slightly different place. And it allows for that flexibility in the campaign. So if you've been playing for so many weeks and you're like, I could really use actually talking to something for a little bit, you can now switch gears fairly effectively without anybody feeling like they've been left behind by their power set. It's really nice.
It's a very adaptable group. There's some great feats I take as well. Mage Initiate, I think it's great for any of these to get like that, detect magic and stuff like that. I like that it's a low magic kind of group of subclasses too. Like if you want to really go into like a gritty world where none of you are like a cleric or a wizard, like you're the scrappy underdogs that have a little bit of knowledge,
I would pair all these up, some rangers, rogues, and fighters, and then I say that, yeah, you do have the one cleric or a divine soul sorcerer, or you got the one magic user,
right,
who is there to be, or you're the warlock with a couple healing spells, and all of your invocations are to pump up your eldritch blast, and you are just the very classic, I'm going to be 3 billion feet away with an eldritch blast that can hit anything and do a ton of damage. And then after the fight, I'll be there with my 2 spell slots to patch you up.
And that's where I can see the Artificer Alchemist, which is such an adept healer, right? And that kind of like pushes further, like the Artificer Alchemist and the Monster Slayer. You've got the Battle Master Fighter, and then you've got the Rogue Mastermind, and then you got the Arcane Archer just keeping an eye on everybody, maybe calling the shots, literally, figuratively, and they all work together in this there's a kind of a synergy that's happening there that's really great. The Unearthed Arcana way of the Mercy Monk is another one that's just like, I punch, I heal.
Or you've got that ranger who is the one that your monster hunter ranger, who is the school of hard knocks. I've learned about all of these monsters from being out there in the field. And you pair them up with a wizard who is the person who's learned the academic stuff. And so maybe they've got a little bit more lore. Maybe they've got a little bit more of the esoteric creatures. Maybe they can discover information that is in their books and in their study that the ranger can't get because they just haven't encountered this extremely rare creature before. And now the two of them pair up in going out and beating Volo at their own game.
Yeah, and I can see like a Grave Domain cleric being part of this group, who they do not like undead, and to have like that moment, where you put your holy symbol out there, and the vampires and the undead recoil is such a classic trope that it never gets old to me, because I also don't want to be the person holding that holy symbol, because you're just like, all right, keep the holy flashlight on the undead.
As someone who's been that flashlight, it can be both fun and terrifying. I would also say do the cleric. So even when you're just hunting down monsters to carve them up for all of their stuff, you have the cleric so that you can cast you can purify food and water.
Yeah.
So that when you're grilling up that steak later on that night and someone says, "Oh, wasn't this from the creature that was poisonous?" Let's just fix that.
That's perfect.
Let's just lesser restaurate over here, We'll just make sure that nobody makes a mistake afterwards.
That's charming. And I also like the idea of the reluctant divine soul sorcerer. Maybe you all found this divine soul sorcerer through your abilities. You're like, we need someone who needs that can heal, and you show up in their town and you size them up like you're working for us. And this is not like this is kind of a shady divine soul sorcerer. I always like playing them that way. They're like, yeah, I can do healing, but I don't care. Like this reluctant divine soul sorcerer idea is kind of fun as well.
I like the
So
reluctant healer idea, but then I turned it into the I'm happy to heal, but I'm reluctant to go out and like this is
yeah,
dangerous. Don't you
yeah,
know that this is dangerous? Why are you hunting these creatures? What, you're just doing it for fun?
yeah,
No,
yeah.
that sounds like a horrible. All right, I'll come along because you'll die otherwise. Like that kind of reluctant. All right, fine.
Any reluctant healer, like again, the alchemist is great because like all my stuff is made of glass. Are you kidding me? Here, take a potion, fly for a while. Just
Yeah.
don't involve me. So, all fun ways, and kind of evoke that Ravenloft campaign or that going after monster campaign. Well, that's it for. I think we've gone a little bit long, but that
Oh,
is our builds character. Thank you so much for watching. These are subclasses that are fantastic for hunting down the undead, dragons, fey creatures, Shadowfell, and it's kind of a lot of subclasses that work incredibly well together. Yeah, thank you everyone for watching. Take care of each other. Thank you so much, Lauren Urban, our community manager. She is fantastic. She is inspirational figure in the D&D world, and she knows a lot about D&D. All right, thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day.